as I'm getting older, there are a couple of things I'm starting to realize about my peers and other people out there in the world, right? Because growing up, I thought that most people my age were like me, because when I grew up, I had certain lessons that I was taught. My parents taught me about sharing, being kind, being compassionate, thinking about other people. Like that's one of those things that my parents definitely made sure to like instill in me. And it was hard as a kid, it was. Not to say that I'm perfect at it or that I'm consistent with those lessons, but like at the end of the day, I know when I am being compassionate. I know if someone calls me out and holds me accountable, I can look back and say, you know what, you're correct. I don't. Maybe I'm falling short in this department or whatever, right? And so these are some of the lessons that, myself and some of my friends were taught, and some of my closest friends today, these are the lessons that they were taught. However, I'm starting to realize that maybe a lot of my peers weren't taught those lessons, or just didn't pay attention as kids growing up, as teenagers, right? Because the amount of times where people will have some sort of discussion, let's say you have people on two opposing sides of an argument, right? And people are just unwilling, like just totally unwilling to see another person's perspective, or at the very least to acknowledge that, hey, this is a perspective that I do not have, I have not experienced, and so it would actually benefit me to listen and to take in that information and to see whether it changes my belief, it influences in any way, or if it validates my belief even more, right? I have a lot of discussions with women, particularly like women that I work with, and this past week we had a discussion about how some women act, how some men act, the dynamic between men and women, what causes toxic relationships and things like that too. Now, the woman I was talking to, and she admitted openly, she said, hey, listen, she's a woman, so she is biased to everything woman. And I said, hey, that's fair enough. You know what? I appreciate you for saying it, because I don't think a lot of people are willing to say. In the same vein that a lot of men are biased to men, right? We will give men every benefit of the doubt and completely dismiss any complaint that some women have. And I don't think that's fair on either side, right? So she said something that I had to kind of disagree with, right? We were talking about the idea of a man holding his wife's purse, right? She said that, if she's out and about, and, let's say both of them they're out and about, she's tired of holding her purse, and, she asks her husband, she's like, hey, can you hold this? She feels that a man's responsibility is to hold the purse. Now, fair enough. Do I think it should be a responsibility? I think that's just between the couple. If that's what the guy's comfortable doing, great, right? Now, another gentleman that was in the conversation as well, he said, I see your point, but I just want to let you know that for me personally, that's not something that I want to do. Now, he didn't say it like that. He said it in a much more blunt way, because we're having an honest conversation, right? We're not out here trying to be politically correct. We're just saying how we feel, and I think those are some of the best conversations, right? So he was like, listen, do not come up to me, especially if I'm surrounded by other men, and hand me your purse to hold. Because the truth of the matter is, if me being a guy, having friends that are guys, right? If one of my buddy's girlfriends came up to him, or his wife came up to him, gave him a purse, give him her purse to hold, absolutely we're making fun of him. Not because we think that it makes him any less masculine or whatever, but just because it's funny. And we're going to make fun of him. And we're going to say some things that may or may not get underneath his skin, but that's what we do, right? And so he just said, hey, I do not want to be in a situation like that. I said, all right, cool. Now, the woman's response was, well, you're not secure in your masculinity. And this is where I chimed in, right? Because I didn't think that was an accurate statement, right? You see, in our day and age, there's so much discussion about masculinity and femininity. You know, a lot of men are calling women masculine, which I don't think is a thing. Like, you can't be masculine and be a woman. This is just my personal opinion. And the reason I believe that you cannot be a masculine woman is because you're not a man. It really is down to that. Like, you can try to act like a man, but you're not a man, right? You cannot replicate something that you're not. Like, something that's not original to you. So, I just think it's terrible behavior on either part. Anyway, so when she said that he is not secure in his masculinity, I said, hey, now pause a minute, right? Because I don't think it's a question of whether or not he's secure in his masculinity, because he didn't say it makes me look like less of a man if I do this. He said, I don't want to do this, which is different. He expressed a preference, right? So if it's his preference to not have or to not hold his wife's purse, then that is his preference. It does not make him any less of a man. It also doesn't make any other man any more of a man if he chooses to do so, right? And there was three gentlemen, myself included. There were three guys in the conversation, right? So one guy said, yeah, if my wife, if we're going out and about and we're, we got kids and, we're shopping or whatever, yeah, I'll help out. And I said, hey, that is different from her not having anything else but the purse and she hands it off to you, right? He's expressed a preference. He didn't say he feels emasculated. That's not what he said. And then she thought about it and she said, you know what? You're right. I apologize. And to me, I respect that so much. Not because I want to sit here, because she didn't have to listen to me. She didn't have to listen to me. And I could have been totally wrong, right? I just told her my viewpoint. And she took a step back. She listened. She said, you know what? I see what you're saying. That's not right, brother. And to me, I find that is, it's almost as if having those kind of interactions between men and women, it feels so rare. I don't believe that it's a rare thing, but it feels so rare because a lot of discourse, especially on social media, will have you think that, all women are just pro-women and all men are just pro-men, and that, there's almost no way to bridge or to have a meaningful relationship, like a healthy relationship, right? And I don't believe that's the case. I also don't believe that men explicitly are right or women explicitly are right. I believe that the true answer, and this takes a lot of honesty to admit, right? The true answer to any sort of healthy relationship is for both individuals to be honest with not only with their partners but with themselves, right? Because too many people go into relationships saying, I'm not perfect. But the reality is that's not true accountability, because nobody is perfect, right? Accountability isn't, oh, I messed up, I'm sorry. Accountability is, hey, I did X, Y, and Z to you. And I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z to you. I shouldn't have said this specific thing. I shouldn't have done this specific thing. And I'm sorry. I acknowledge that it hurt you. And because I love you and I care about you, I'm going to take the steps necessary to make sure that this does not happen again. Or at the very least, intentionally. Right? Like that's accountability. In the same way that us as men, a lot of times we can say, hey, I may not understand what it is that you're feeling, but I can at least respect that that is what you're feeling and take steps to better approach you, right? I think too many of us focus on relationships as a group, right? We, instead of focusing on what's right in front of us, the details of the relationship we're currently in, we take bits and pieces, like my girlfriend, she tells me all the time, she's like, well, I feel this way because women generally are looked at as X, Y, and Z. And I tell her all the time, I say, hey, listen, I'm not dating women, I'm dating you. I'm not with every woman, I'm with you. So don't take one issue in a relationship, blow it up into a social problem, and then come to me and say, I'm treating you wrong. Because I'm going to tell you, hey, whatever it is that you're feeling, if you're feeling it because that's what you think society wants from you, I'm sorry you feel that way. But that's not what I asked of you. And because I'm not dating every other woman, I'm dating you. I need you to listen to what I'm asking of you and not what society asks of you. The same way that I listen to what you ask of me and not what other women out there in the world would ask of me. Because I care about the relationship between you and me, not how I am viewed outside by every other woman. And I think that should be the mindset that we operate in. I think that should be the mindset that we have when we are in a relationship. Not to approach it in the sense of, well, as a man in society, blah, dot, dot, dot. No. Or as a woman in society, dot, dot, dot. It has to be from the viewpoint of, how can I show up for this person right in front of me? Because I wholeheartedly understand. There is a time and a place for when the larger scope is necessary, right? But when you're dealing with those personal or those relationship issues, that's not the time to all of a sudden focus on the larger scope, right? Because again, I can't do anything for what other women have gone through. But what I can take care of is what my woman, my girlfriend, my future wife is going through right now. I can't solve the problems of other women, but I might be able to solve the problems of the love of my life right now. The same way that a lot of women, if you're having an issue with a man, and in your mind you're not necessarily just focusing on what he's doing, but you're adding in context from your exes, you're adding in context from other men out there in the world, right? You might not be looking at that situation accurately. Because if what he's going through is point A, but you're adding in point B, point C, point D into it, you've made it a larger problem. And if the solution to his issue was simple and just required a conversation, but you've added in all these other factors, now there's things that he can't do anything about. And I tell this to my girlfriend all the time. I say, listen, I can't speak for what you've been through, but this is who I am, and this is how I represent myself. And I need you to trust me to stay consistent in that manner. I don't know them other guys you were with. I don't know those exes of yours. I don't know what you've been through. All I know is that this is who I am, and this is how I'm representing myself. So I need you to pay attention to how I communicate, how I represent myself. Because if I show you A, but you're still focused on B or C or D, because that's what you've had in the past, we're going to have an issue. And the issue is, we're not going to be on the same page. Because what I'm showing to you, you're not seeing. And in the same way that us as men, we have to approach it from the viewpoint of, hey, we're not dealing with women, we're dealing with a woman. What does she need? Not what do women need, but what does she need? What's going on with her? What is she feeling? What is she communicating to us, right? We don't have to sit here and solve the dating crisis. We just have to pay attention to the person that's right in front of us. And honestly, I think that might be the solution. I think that's the way in which to have a healthy relationship, is don't sit there and try to focus and try to change the narrative on how men are viewed, because you can't. Same way that you're not going to be able to change the narrative on how women are viewed. You can't. It's impossible. It was there before you were born, and it's probably going to be there after you go to be with our Heavenly Father, right? But the one thing you can do while you're in that relationship is to take care of the person that's right in front of you. They should be your only responsibility. Everybody else, you should care about them. You should love them. You should help out when you can. You should be there. You should show up if you have the opportunity to. But they should not be your responsibility. Your responsibility is the person right in front of you. That's all I got.